Okay, I know that I've posted the entire technical instruction for both the basic and universal version. But there are a few things that will be too much of a clutter if I put them over there. So, as a companion compendium, I've created this unofficial technical instruction. Sure, you can use JPM any way you wish, and that's the official rule. But unofficially, there are certain things that we can do to help us utilize the full use and potential of JPM while maintaining its efficiency and ease of use. These are practically a personal preference, so it goes without saying that you don't have to follow them in case you have your own ways of doing it. But if you don't, or you haven't really thought about it, this might be a great way to start. So, to help you with all your future endeavor on making poses, here is the unofficial technical instruction. Let's start with using JPM itself. Stay in the object mode. You see, this is probably the first time I actually show it, so unlike the pose library that's only visible and available in pose mode, JPM is visible and available both in pose and object mode. So I can actually load the poses when I'm in the object mode. Unless I'm actually and actively posing the rig, I very much like to stay in the object mode because in pose mode, I cannot do anything else but posing. So let's just stay in object mode. Next, File Manager. For me, I very much like to save the poses in the folder of the rig. For example, for my Athena rig, I put the poses inside the Athena pose folder and not dump them together with poses from other rigs. Next, Bone Manager. Of course, this has something to do with my stay in the object mode preference. Another great thing about JPM is that it bypasses Blender UI, which hides the bone transform properties when we are in the object mode. What this means is that we can now actually change bone transform property inside the object mode. And we can do so with all the bones listed in one place. And that place is the Bone Manager panel. One of the most common instances is to batch change the rotation order of the bones. Imagine that you have a brand new rig where most of the bones are using quaternion rotation mode. Now, quaternion is great, but you would like to change it to jugular like XYZ. Normally, you would need to click the bone and change its rotation mode and do the same thing with the next bone again and again. But now, with JPM's Bone Manager, we can change it in one place. The other most common instances is to tweak a pose. I know that creating a pose is an intuitive thing. I like to move and rotate the bones around in the 3D viewport myself. But once the pose is mostly done and saved, and in the future it just so happens that I would like to tweak the pose a little bit, I would prefer doing that by the numbers. Because the tweak is more likely to be small, that even if I'm tweaking it in pose mode, I would most likely use shift all the time anyway. There's just this sense of stability inside the bone transform property values that I trust more than the visual of the 3D viewport when it comes to precision tweaking. Next, which this is the big one, and that is registering the bones. So, even though in the technical instruction I said that we can select all the bones there are in the rig, register them all at once, and they will be listed according to the rig's bone hierarchy. But for me, it's not actually the best way to do it. For one thing, it's dependent to the rig's bone hierarchy, which ultimately depends on the rigger. It would be great if it has a great hierarchy by default, but if it's not, it would be messy. So I very much like to have more of a independent and consistent way of registering the rig's bones. As you can see from the poses I've created for Athena, I have a very specific way of ordering the bones. Of course, we have provided these move row buttons so that we can reorder the registry. But I figured that instead of selecting all the bones and registering them all at once, and then having to reorder the entire thing to fit the order that I want, I just usually register them with the order that I have in mind in the first place. However, as I've pointed out before, we don't have to stick with only one set of registry at any given time. We can register the bones separately into separate sets of registry. For full body pose, it usually starts from the big ones: root, torso, hips, chest, neck, and head. Then I get to the IK limb controls, FK limb controls, and finally the fingers. And then I usually add 2 more sets of registry, one for the fingers and the other for facial expressions. I figured that those 3 separate sets of registry, for most cases, are all that I need. Okay, next, and this is the biggest one, and it is pose name convention. This is quite important because unless you want to forget everything, you would need a clear and robust pose name convention. So the standard pose 001 is not gonna cut it if you wish to keep using JPM for a long time without wondering what pose does what. I very much like to name my pose with a very clear and future-proof name convention. So this is the general rule of how I do it. Rig system underscore rig name underscore body parts underscore pose name underscore variant number underscore index. So I know that's a lot, so what are they? Rig system. Okay, I know that you may be thinking, what is rig system? Well, we will get to that later. Rig name. Well, it's the name of the rig. In this demonstration, I have used both the Athena and Rain rigs. And Athena and Rain are the rig names. Body parts. As I mentioned earlier about separate bone registry, for me, as you can see from the poses I've created, I use body pose, hand pose, and face pose as the name. Post name. So, this is the first and the only subjective part of the name, because we can name it anything that we think describes the post best. I mean, I named the body poses for my Athena rig statue because, well, I got the poses from the statues of Athena around the world. Variant number. Well, this is another objective part of the name. If we have like 5 grab hand poses, we can put number 1 to 5 on them so that we can identify which is which. Index, well, this is also only applicable when we are doing the fingers and the face, where there are the left and the right side. Though we can use flip functionality to make the left to the right and vice versa, we would still need to identify the original side of the pose. Okay, I've tested this name convention for a while now, and as of right now, it's still the best for me. It's concise and clear, making it more robust and future proof. Okay, I guess now is a good time to explain what is rig system. Though they have relatively the same names, but a rig system is not the same as a rig. For example, as I've mentioned earlier, my Athena rig is built with Rigify, a rigging add-on which comes with Blender. This means that Rigify is a rig system, and my Athena rig is a rig. You may be thinking, why? You see, a rigging add-on usually already has its own unique way to name the bones of the rigs created by it. And rig system is basically that unique way. If you go check the name of this bone, it's called hand underscore ik dot capital L. And that is the name which Rigify chooses to name its left hand IK bone controller. You can create your own Rigify rig, a dozen of them, and on each one of them, this thing will still be named hand underscore ik dot capital L. That's the reason why Rigify is a rig system and my Athena rig is a rig created by Rigify rig system. Okay, now you may be thinking, why does it matter? Well, the rig system not only matters when I name the poses, but it also matters when I name the profile. You see, if you have a dozen rigs created by Rigify, you don't actually need to have a dozen profiles for each one of the rig. You only need one profile, and that is the profile for Rigify rig system. So, by using the pose name convention I explained earlier, when I see the poses, I know in what rig system they are created. Then I can choose the profile for both the source and the destination accordingly. For example, if I got these poses from someone else and they are labeled with Rigify in front of them, I know that I should import the Rigify profile on the source tab. And because I know too that my Athena rig is also created by Rigify, I can then import the exact same Rigify profile on the destination tab. Okay, this goes without saying that the rig system also matters when I name the adapter. You see, I know that in case of the rain rig, I have no idea about in what rig system it's made of. So I skip the rig system name and name it with its rig name instead. So in this case, as you would probably have noticed by now, I named the adapter that I use in the technical instruction Rigify to Rain adapter. I know that I've created Rigify to Rain adapter in the technical instruction, but I actually also have created Rigify to Rigify adapter, and you should probably too. Or in case you have your own preferred rigging add-on that you frequently use, you should make one for that rigging system as well. The good reason for having a same rig adapter is because we can use it on the offset tab as well. Though I've mentioned earlier in the technical instruction that the most important function of the offset tab is to synchronize a rig with A to T rest pose and vice versa, but just like the Bone Manager, it's much more powerful of a tool than that. Just like its name suggests, it can practically offset anything. And for me, I figured that I can actually use it when I want to tweak a pose without actually updating or changing the pose itself. So in other words, by using the offset on the rig, I can tweak the pose, but I do so non-destructively. So, for example, let's say in one particular scene, I need to put the thinner rig not in the exact middle, like the one saved in the post data. So I need to move the entire Athena rig to the right. Now, instead of actually changing the root location and update the post data, I usually just use the offset tab to offset the root location. To do that, let's go to the destination tab and import the exact same Rigify profile that I use on the source tab. Now, I can go down to the adapter manager and import my Rigify to Rigify adapter. Then go to the offset tab, and in location mode, I'm gonna find the root and put the number 1 meter inside the location X. Now let's move up to the pose panel, and then we can reload the pose. Voila! Now it moves to the right without us having to actually change and update the pose. Not only that, when we load other poses, it remains on the right as well. And if we would like to return it to its original root location, we can turn off this button, enable offset, and then reload the pose. Voila! Now it goes back to its original root location. It's a non-destructive way of doing it, and for me, it's a great tool that I find myself using over and over again. And of course, I can do exactly the same thing when I want to offset a different rig, like the rain rig as well. Let's go back to the rain rig, go straight down to the adapter manager, onto the offset tab, and location mode. I'm going to find the root and put 1 meter inside the location X. Now, if we reload the pose, it will do exactly the same thing like what we did with the Athena rig. So, I guess that's it for the unofficial technical instruction. On the next part, we're going to talk about pricing.